Through faith, all feats are possible. Hello there everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire. Continuing on with the first edition Pathfinder Cleric Guide, today we're going to be going over your feat selection, and I know I said I wanted to try to do something a little bit different with feats, but really trying to play around with anything different, especially with the setup and how I present, with the Cleric, it's going to require so much context because what domains did you pick out? What role are you going for? How have you arrayed your stats? Maybe you want to lean more into combat and you decided to tank your charisma a little bit more, not really have much for your intelligence, and decided to put more points into strength and constitution, maybe even to the point that you're de-emphasizing your wisdom score just a little bit to start off with so that you can have stronger stats in strength and charisma, or constitution rather, or dex and constitution. And from there, that's going to change which domains are going to be a little bit more appealing to you. Maybe the travel domain is going to be more important because that's going to have more to do with a lot of positioning, which is going to be even more important for a melee focused cleric. Or hell, if you've gone with range, being able to position and move further away is still going to be important. And if you've decided to go with the animal domains or any of the subdomains in there to get an animal companion, well, that's going to kind of change up a little bit more which kinds of spells you want to emphasize, and that'll change which meta magic feats that you want to keep your eyes on a little bit more. So what we're going to do, we're going to go over the feat selection that I've got for this particular build, and we are also going to talk about some other feats that might be interesting with this or could change up your build in a big enough way that it's going to be just something radically different than what's presented here. And then afterwards, we'll just kind of brainstorm, although that part's going to be a little bit more off the cuff and certainly stream of consciousness. But before we get into all of that, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. Or if you've already gone on ahead and listed yourself on such an incredible roster of legendary heroes, then go on down to hit the like button and share the video far and wide. But now, let's actually start talking about this here. So, for your feats, for your first level, or if you're playing a human, this is your human bonus feat, we are going to pick up Spell Focus Conjuration. This gives a +1 to the save DC for conjuration spells. That's not the most incredible thing ever. Certainly conjuration is an effective school of magic, but not a lot of conjuration spells are going to have save DCs for their effects. And those aren't always necessarily going to be the best spells to be throwing out there anyways, but it does unlock a lot of great options for us later, and certainly making it harder for your opponents to save doesn't really hurt all that much. Now, for your first level feat, and just bear in mind, if you're not playing a human, then everything on this list, just knock it down by 1. We are going to pick up Summon Good Monster. This gives you expanded summon monster lists, such as different celestial variants. In this case, a Celestial Eagle for Summon Monster 1. That's going to be huge, especially since the summon monster lists, while they're summoning, is going to put more bodies on the battlefield for your side. That's more movement, more attacks, flanking bonuses, and if any opponent's attacks go towards the summoned creatures, those are essentially wasted attacks because they're not affecting you or your flesh and blood party members. But being able to boost their effectiveness is going to be great, so Summon Good Monster is going to be pretty dang handy all the way around. Then for level 3, we are going to grab Sacred Summons. When summoning a creature whose subtype matches your aura, cast the spell as a standard action instead of with a casting time of 1 round. So getting to throw out a summon as a standard action is huge. That does wonders for your action economy. It is limited by the fact that the creature has to match your alignment essentially, or your deity's alignment, but really that's not too bad in the grand scheme of things, especially since if you're going to be a good aligned cleric, as we're doing with this here using summon good monster, that's going to be relatively easy, especially with these expanded lists that we're working with. Then for level 5, we are going to grab Summon Versatile Monster. This is going to require Knowledge Arcana and Knowledge Planes be at 1 rank each, but once you do that, you pick 2 monster templates from Aerial, Aqueous, Chthonic, Dark, Fiery, and Primordial. Now, this gets applied over top of the creatures that you summon and adds quite a bit of utility and different bonuses to them depending on what you pick. Aerial, for example, takes the monster you're summoning, it takes their top movement speed and gives them an equivalent as a fly speed with perfect maneuverability. That's pretty damn great right there too. Summon Versatile Monster is going to do a lot for us since we're leaning a little bit more into summoning. But we're not just going to be summoning, because clerics work really well as second string or even frontline fighters, and so we're going to pick up heavy armor proficiency at level 7. This allows you to wear heavy armor without penalty. Fantastic. You are going to be able to wade into the thick of a fight if you need to. You're going to be able to summon more help to support your back line, and you're going to be able to just be more survivable and tanky all the way around. But to help with that, at level 9, we are going to grab Power Attack. Take a -1 penalty to attack for +2 damage every 4 attack bonus that you gain. So at a +4 attack bonus, you're taking a -2 penalty to attack, but you're gaining a +4 to damage, or +3 to damage if you're two-handing the weapon. So in that case, at a +4 attack bonus, you'd be looking at +6 damage in exchange for that -2 to your attack. So that is going to scale pretty damn nicely, and by level 9 you're going to have plenty of attack bonus and ability to buff yourself through various spells that you're going to offset that penalty to attack pretty nicely. And not only that, but your buff spells are going to be able to be applied to more and more allies, and that's just going to make everything go off the charts for you and your team. Then at level 11, we're picking up Wanderer's Fortune. This requires Knowledge Planes 3 ranks. It's a swift action to gain the effects of freedom of movement till the end of your turn, or until you benefit from the effects to escape a grapple or magical restraint, whichever comes first, and this is usable 1 time per day, +1 for every 5 ranks of Knowledge Planes. So this is another great bit of utility that you're picking up for yourself, because while you are going to be an effective second stringer or even relatively effective frontline fighter once you at least have your buffs in place, if you get grappled or pinned down, since we're not working with the greatest strength score and our heavy armor is going to limit us on our ability to make escape artist checks, which isn't even a class skill for us, being able to have freedom of movement kick in for you and be able to use this multiple times per day depending on how many ranks of Knowledge Planes that you have, this is going to make you even more survivable and hard to pin down. So, and this is also going to help to negate different kinds of area of effect spells that might be creating difficult terrain, or webs, or the entangle spell. So Wanderer's Fortune is going to be really handy, and it's also going to make it so that your spell slots aren't going to be constantly getting regularly burned using freedom of movement. At level 13, we are going to grab Augmented Summons, which is going to give a +4 bonus to summoned creatures' strength and constitution scores. So that's +2 to attack and melee, +2 to damage, and 2 extra hit points per hit dice that they have. So your augmented creatures are going to be even more effective on the battlefield. Level 15, we are going to grab Divine Interference. Use an immediate action to sacrifice a divine spell slot to make an enemy reroll an attack that hits an ally within 30 feet. The second roll takes a penalty to attack equal to the level of the spell used, and this can't be used on the same target twice in one day. So that might be tempting for you to use, say, a 3rd level spell, 4th or 5th, resist that temptation. Use your first level spells. Use your first level spell slots. By 15th level, they're not going to be in as regular use, although you still will have some spells that are going to be better than nothing, and certainly possibly even still fairly effective for you, even at higher levels. But in comparison to the value that a 3rd level spell slot, a 4th level spell slot can provide, it's not even worth it. At 15th level, a -3 penalty to attack, I mean, it's nothing to sneeze at, but it's also not going to make that big of a difference. The important thing is making them re-roll, and since you can only use this once on a target in a day, save it for when they land a critical hit, or if it's going to be a killing blow on an ally, because then maybe you can get them to miss. But if nothing else, at least make it so that they're not landing a crit. That's what you want to use Divine Interference for. At level 17, we are going to grab Superior Summoning. When casting a summon spell that summons more than one creature, add 1 to the total creature summoned. So if you roll a d3, you get a 2, well, fantastic. You just summon 3 creatures. If you are rolling a d6 somehow, well, and you get a 5, now you've got 6 creatures, so on and so forth. So this is going to make your low-level summon monster spells that much better for you. Definitely, and you can, considering everything else that we're stacking together here, being able to summon as a standard action if the creatures match your aura alignment, getting augmented summoning, and then having these other variable effects like laying on different templates like aerial on the summoned creatures, you are going to have a whole utility belt, a whole hammer space of creatures with wild and dizzying arrays of abilities that are just going to confound and confuse your opponents and allow you to affect a wider array of creatures than you might otherwise have been able to. At 19th level, we are going to grab Augment Calling. Choose an outsider subtype such as Angel, Devil, Elemental, Archon, etc. When using Planar Ally or Planar Binding, call an additional 2 hit dice of outsiders with the chosen subtype. When using Planar Ally, reduce the demanded price for services by 25% to a minimum of 1,000 gold pieces. Absolutely a steal at level 19. When using Planar Binding and requesting service, gain a +2 on Charisma checks to do so. Great to have that as a boost there as well, considering that Charisma is not going to be the greatest of scores for us. Now, that 2 additional hit dice of outsiders doesn't sound incredibly exciting, right? Well, let's just say you're changing up this build a little bit and you're using Planar Binding to bring in, say, a demon subtype of outsiders. Well, that 2 hit dice difference will allow you to call in a Balor. Another word that I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce. I'm pretty sure it's a potato situation, but regardless, you know what I'm talking about. The 20 hit dice demon creatures of the Abyss. Some of the strongest and most terrifying of opponents that you could ever conjure forth. Wildly dangerous, incredibly deadly. It's amazing that this just one little change allows you to bring those in at your own peril, but definitely absolutely worth it. It's huge what a difference that can make. Now, going on to other feats for you, consider looking at Extend Spell, double duration of spells for a +1 to spell level. So a level 1 spell will now take up a 2nd level spell slot, 2nd level takes up 3rd level, so on and so forth. This is going to be great for buffs and debuffs overall. And you might want to look at more focusing on buffing spells if you're bringing in an animal companion as an example, or if you have allies that are looking at bringing in animal companions. Certainly, given the whole suite of buffs and debuffs that you have in your spell list, this is certainly worth considering swapping out one of the other combat feats for. I mean, I would hesitate to swap out heavy armor proficiency, but maybe you could get away with trading out power attack, because certainly you're not going to be hurting leaning more into your magic necessarily, and this is going to make it so that your buffing spells, your allies are going to compensate for the damage you're not doing extensively by buffing their ability to put out damage. And debuffing your enemies is also going to reduce their ability to affect you and your allies, and you still have the ability to summon in all kinds of monsters. Certainly you could trade out Extend Spell for one of the other summoning augmenting feats. Then we also could look at Improved Initiative. It's a +4 bonus to initiative. Going first is incredible for spellcasters, in particular full spellcasting classes, because look at everything that you're able to do. If you go first and you have a standard action and you throw out all of these summoned creatures, I mean, 4 celestial dire lions, that's going to make any opponent reconsider their life choices in that moment. But the next feat to consider would be Empower Spell. All variable numeric effects of a spell are increased by half, including bonuses to those rolls. This does give a +2 to spell level, so a 2nd level spell will take up a 4th level spell slot, but these variables would also include summon spells. So that's another thing to consider right there, and that increasing the number of creatures is going to be incredibly handy. And also, if you have the gosh, I've already forgotten the feat, Superior Summoning. Had to click back a couple of slides there and think for a minute. But considering that is going to automatically add 1 more to the total there, you could have a small army raised so quickly. And if you've got greater planar binding and you're bringing in all kinds of terrible creatures and getting them bound to your will, your DM is probably going to hate you and make you put limits onto things, but it certainly presents a whole lot of interesting options. And speaking of putting together an army, there are domains that basically affect your ability to use leadership as an example and add in creatures or followers to your party, and you can combine that with the leadership feat, and then in that case you would focus more on your charisma score, which means your channeling abilities are also going to be much more useful. So you're going to want to look at different variant channeling effects. Sure, that's going to reduce the number of dice you're able to output as part of channeling, but some of those bonuses that you can get are going to be great, especially coupled with the number of creatures that you can bring to bear using leadership and the effects that your domain is going to bring to you. And then top that off with, again, you can summon a lot of things, and again, your DM is really going to hate you, probably to the point that they're just going to ban leadership for you. And hopefully if they do that, they'll let you swap out the leadership feat and then have you keep a lot of your followers at home at your home base and count them more as your regular staff and the like. But there's lots of different ways that you could go with clerics. But the cleric class is definitely going to require quite a bit of planning, and I'm realizing any class does require some forethought and planning, but clerics especially, in particular because so many of their abilities are front-loaded. You're making a lot of these decisions at level 1. You're picking out your domains, so you have to understand what bonuses and benefits you're getting out of those domains, not just the bonus spells, but how the domain powers synergize together and how that's going to affect your feat selection down the line and what you're going to be kind of getting yourself locked into early on. Certainly, the summoning route's not a bad way to go. It definitely makes you a force multiplier, but again, you're going to want to consider it a little bit, because I wouldn't say that my feat selection that I've presented here today is flawless or the most optimal thing. What it's doing is it's leaning into your ability to summon creatures and emphasizing that, so you're leaning more into your spell casting. But we are also throwing in a little bit of combat utility as a nice secondary thing to do for those moments when maybe you don't have room or time to summon, or you've brought out enough summoned creatures and you've buffed yourself and your allies enough that now it's like, okay, time to go to town, break out the greatsword or the halberd or some other kind of polearm and start wading into the thick of the fighting yourself. Or if you need to be active, more direct, active, and present in protecting your squishier backline characters like your other full spellcasting classes such as sorcerers or wizards. And man, this doesn't even get into how things might change up if you're leaning more into healing, as an example, going with a healing domain and having something to kind of buff as a supplement. Then you're going to focus more on feats that are going to boost your ability to heal allies and the like, although healing is usually still going to be better done outside of fights, in the aftermath, or in the purest of emergencies. But Empower spell is going to work pretty nicely for that because it's increasing the variable numeric effects and the bonuses to your healing rolls. So that's going to make your healing spells much more effective overall. And there's other ways to go about all of that. It just really just depends. So think about things ahead of time, talk with your DM, especially if they're knowledgeable about clerics, or see if anybody else at the table has played clerics before, or go online. There's certainly plenty of guides out there. I keep referencing RPGbot, Illusory, but these are not the only people that have built guides for the cleric class. There's lots out there. There's lots of forums, in particular on Reddit or the D20 Pathfinder system reference document page. There's a whole wealth of resources out there that are going to be pretty useful, but ideally your DM should be the one to help you a bit because they're going to know the most about the campaign. They're going to know the most about what is potentially going to be the most use for you. Hopefully they can give you some tips, tricks, or advice that's not going to completely spill the beans on what the nature of the campaign is going to be. And as I said, and will continue to say, this guide is just a guide. Change it, play with it, go completely off this trail that I've set down here and build something of your own. Do what is going to be the most fun for you and your friends. But what do you think? Go on down to the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Did you like today's video? Did you dislike it? Hit the like or dislike buttons and leave your thoughts in the comments down below so that we can engage in discussion. And hell, if you have made it this far, you must have enjoyed something up to this point, so why not consider going down there, hitting the subscribe button, and becoming a regular member here at the Gamers Den. But with all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night, and good gaming to you all, folks.